Welcome to episode 281 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak encouragement into the hearts of educators and get you informed and energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm talking with Lisa Woodruff of the Organized 365 podcast about how planning ahead can be a form of self-care. Visit truthforteachers.com for an easy-to-read, easy-to-share version of this podcast episode.
My number one advice is join. If you are considering it, well, you've probably found this at just the right time in your life.
Definitely highly recommend the program. It really helped me to have a successful year.
Be more proactive and intentional about how I use my time, how I grade, and also to make connections with other teachers.
It gave me back time with my family.
I've had more time at home. I've had more time to spend with family. It made it really easy.
Has allowed me to implement balance in my life.
My students and I have a completely different relationship now. I'm excited to be with the kids, and they can definitely sense that.
Welcome back to the show. Those were some testimonials from educators in my 40-hour teacher workweek program. If you want to learn more and you want to join us for the upcoming school year, just go to 40htw.com, 40htw.com, and you can learn more about how to get into the program and start taking back your nights and weekends as well. So in today's episode, I'm letting you listen in on an excerpt of a conversation I had with Lisa Woodruff of the Organized 365 podcast. She is also the creator of the Education Friday Workbox, which is a system that helps teachers make the invisible administrative work visible, so you can streamline, automate, or eliminate it. You can hear our full conversation over on her podcast, but I wanted to highlight a portion of it here for you, which is about planning ahead and why that can be a form of self-care. If you're a person who likes to have a plan, I think you'll find this interview incredibly validating. And if you're a person who struggles to plan or struggles to stick to a plan or just doesn't enjoy it, you may hear something today that helps things really sort of click for you in a new way. To-do lists and long-term plans don't have to be rigid or add pressure to your life. In fact, they can be an important way that you care for yourself and you tend to your own needs. Now, before we get started, I want to give you a quick little note about Lisa and what's going on in her personal life that will help you make more sense of this conversation if you don't already subscribe to her Organized 365 podcast. So if you don't know anything about her personally, Lisa is currently getting her PhD. She is trying to understand the science of organization so that she can conduct her own research around this topic. So you'll hear her reference the PhD process here. She'll also mention Grayson, which is her grandson. Lisa is helping to care for her daughter and her grandson who live with her and her husband. So, of course, on top of all of this, she's also running her company. So she has a very busy and full life. She is extremely high energy and productive. This is basically the opposite of me and the opposite of the life that I've created for myself. I'm just much more chill. I need a lot of alone time. So it's always fun when Lisa and I can get together and see where we sync up and how we're different. And because we're both fascinated with different people's processes and what works for different personality types and brains, I think we just always have a great time together. So I think you will probably hear a little bit of yourself in both of us. Listen in.
So I want to know, Angela, when did you first fall in love with planning?
You know, I think planning is actually at the core of what I've always loved most about teaching because there's so much to plan for. And, you know, organizing my ideas and just deciding what order I want to do things in has just always been something that has been a big passion of mine. It was something that I feel like I really got a lot of enjoyment from. And I know that's not the case for all people. I know for some people, it's really a struggle. For many educators, it's their least favorite part of teaching. But for me, coming up with these kinds of systems is just thrilling. I love to think of something that is, you know, not working particularly well and then create some sort of system to make it work better.
Well, and I think too, when you're planning, like as a teacher, like when I would get done teaching a unit, I'd be like, oh, I could do this better. I could do this more. I could add on this piece. And so I'd write all of those notes and leave it in that folder for that unit so that when I taught that unit again, I'd be like, oh, that's right. I want to trade out this experiment for that experiment. I want to ask parents to come in and volunteer for this. And so that piece of continually learning and developing and never doing the same thing twice. Like there's always a deeper learning every single year. Like I don't think I've ever taught anything the same way twice. And I love that part of teaching, that I'm always continually learning and growing, just like the students are learning and growing. And so that takes a lot of planning, but it also takes a lot of remembering the things that you wanted to make the improvements of a full year later, or sometimes 2 or 3 years later when that circles around again.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, being able to innovate and to extend what you were already doing only works if you had a good plan to begin with. That's what really frees you up to be creative in the moment. And sometimes when people say, I don't like to plan, or I don't want to be boxed in, I think they're thinking of this very rigid schedule that you must adhere to. But I've found that when I have a really good plan, it actually frees me up to be more creative because I know I've got the basics covered. And then I can sort of wing it. I can sort of go with how I'm feeling at the moment, how kids are feeling at the moment. And it really frees me up in so many ways that I know you've experienced too.
Yeah. So what is your personal weekly planning process like? I know you're not in the classroom anymore, but are you still using planning in your personal life? And what is the cadence of that weekly planning for you?
So I set up quarterly goals for myself. In terms of my business. So my business is creating resources for teachers. I have a podcast for teachers. I write books for teachers, curriculum resources, and that sort of thing. So I break down my year into quarters, and I think about what I want to have accomplished at the end of the quarter. Then I back up and think about, okay, so what will I do each month? And then what will I do each week? And this is something that doesn't take actually as long as it sounds. It sounds very detailed, but these are broad overviews. Like I just want to have, this specific thing finished. I'm working on a set of resources right now called Finding Flow Solutions, which is bringing productivity practices to the classroom. And so I'll say, I want to have this unit for secondary students done by the end of this quarter, which means I need to have the marketing done by this piece. I need to have the proofreading done by this date. And I can kind of work backwards. So then when I'm planning out my week, I can just look to see, okay, what was the thing that I needed to have done by the end of the month? And how do I start tackling that? And so I can start scheduling that into my to-do list. So what I use is just the Notes app, which comes standard installed on iPhone and iMac, and I use both. So it syncs across the two. I have my stuff that I want to finish by the end of the week. I have my business stuff. I have my personal stuff. This time of year, I'm doing a lot of things outside in the garden and in the yard. So I also have my goals for that. And then I can just look through each day and plug in what it is that I want to do, what I have time to do, what I have energy to do, and make sure that that stuff is ticked off by the end of the week. If it's not, I can move to the next week. That's fine. But kind of knowing where I'm going and what I need to have accomplished by the end of the quarter really helps. Because it keeps me motivated. I know that if I let something slip off my plate and I have something else already planned for the next month, then I'm not going to be able to meet my goals. So for me, that's just the right amount of accountability and sort of external deadlines, but not so much that I feel like my days are super rigid and I can't, go with the flow and pay attention to my own needs, pay attention to the needs of the people that I love.
Yeah, I love that you understand yourself. I find the more that I plan, you went through how you plan your week, which I love that you went through that. And as soon as you said, I open up the Notes app, I was like, and I'm out. Because I am not digital. I have an iPhone, but I use a desktop computer and it's not a Mac. And so that's not going to sync. I use everything Google. So I already knew as you were talking, I was like, I'm not going to glean anything from this that's going to work in my personal productivity. But other people are like, finally, Lisa has somebody that's talking about something that's not paper and pencil. For the love, does she realize we're out of the Stone Age? And so I view planning as part of my self-care. And what I mean by that is I'm setting up my future self for what I want to have accomplished and the transformation I personally want to have and that I want to be a part of with the people that I'm in community with in the world. So in order to do that, I have a certain kind of flare tip pen that I like. I like a desktop computer with a huge monitor. I like paper notes. I like a bag that'll hold a binder and slash pockets that aren't going to get crumpled up. So I like a certain kind of lunchbox. Like we spend all this time thinking about, instead of just dealing with things that are kind of irritating and frustrating, like get a better lunchbox, get a better backpack, get the actual organized 365 workbox, go ahead and invest in the 40-hour work week. All of these investments, while they are financial investments, are not like the college degree. Like they're not this price tag of an investment, and they're very personalized. I was thinking about developing a backpack in Organized 365. I thought, well, this is logical. You move from the portable bag to a backpack. Everybody likes backpacks. We'll partner with a company and we'll make a backpack. So I had my whole team bring in their favorite backpacks. Every single one was different. Everybody liked a different thing. I was like, forget it. I'm never, ever making a backpack. I'm not a backpack making company. Everyone has something they really, really like about their bag. Your purse, your wallet, like we get very, very minute down to the details of things that we really, really, really like about that. And the same is true with planning. Like one person's planning is not going to fit your planning, but you need to have one. Like not having a plan does not make you feel more free. I'm just telling you, it does not.
Yeah, that is the worst feeling for most people, even people who don't think they like to plan. They also don't like flying by the seat of their pants and not knowing what's going on that day and feeling just constantly behind, feeling like you're forgetting something all the time. It's the worst feeling. So figuring out that planning system that works for your personality is so, so important. I mean, I know, Lisa, you've talked about like, when you think of something, you write it on an index card. You still do that, right? That's still your system?
I totally do.
And then you put it in your purse and then you put it in the Sunday basket, right? So that you get to it on Sunday. So that's something that I would rather just keep it on my phone. There's not a right way to do this.
Right.
And so what I love is just listening to different people's systems and thinking about what works for them. Because there are people that I talk to who like absolutely could not do this digitally. And there are people who don't want to do it paper, and kind of letting go of this idea that there's this one size fits all, and that if you don't enjoy planning or you don't do it effectively or you don't stick to your plan, that there's something wrong with you. I think it's just that you haven't found the right system for yourself yet, because I have tried other systems in the past. I've done a paper planner. It just didn't work for me. I feel like I would forget it at home and I don't know. It just didn't work for me. And rather than saying, okay, well, I'm just not an organized person, or I'm not going to be able to plan. I guess this is just, I'll just have to kind of keep it all in my head, which is the worst thing you can do, is try to remember everything.
Right.
Like, no, I'm going to keep listening to other people's ideas. I'm going to keep trying out different things until I find what works. And being aware that what works, I think, will also change throughout different seasons of your life. It will change as your brain changes, as you get older, as your life changes, as your needs and preferences change, and as your tasks change. So again, this is why it's so important to know yourself and to be able to figure out how to adapt things for you. And that really is just trial and error, just being willing to try something out and say, that didn't work. That doesn't mean I failed. It means that this system wasn't right for me. Can I try something different?
So that's what I just wrote down. I was like, okay, 2 more points. I want to talk about this. That was the one. I think that if you have tried a couple of different ways to get organized, like you tried the note cards or you tried the digital, maybe both didn't work. You're like, great. Neither of those worked for me. So planning doesn't work because it didn't work for me, instead of keeping iterating and trying, and you're trying to get a gold star. So planning is a never ending thing. So it's not like you can be like, okay, this is the way I plan, and then I'm done, and I'm done forever. Like planning changes based on your family dynamic, the state you live in, the grade you're teaching, the age you are. Like there are different ages where you're just like, your brain functions differently. Oh my goodness. A couple of years ago, I was forgetting my words. Like I was having a hard time talking. I was like, oh no, like I'm only 50. Like this can't happen this young. I'm going to be 100. I won't even know what my name is. And it was hormonal. Like by the time I got my hormones in balance, like my brain came back. I mean, there are certain seasons in life where different things happen cognitively, physically, hormonally, emotionally, that really do impact every area of your life. And so if you're like, okay, I am going to get 1% better in my planning, I'm going to get 1% better in being proactive instead of reactive, instead of like, I'm going to scrap all of this and now I'm going to move to a Mac computer and I'm going to digitize my life. Like when you've been a paper pencil person, like that's not going to work. I'm just going to tell you, that's not going to work. It's going to be a fun hobby. You're going to have a nice Mac computer, which mine is a paperweight because I went right back to my, somebody's like, don't worry. My kids are taking the Mac computer. They like those. But you have to go with what is working for you and just make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. This isn't something you're trying to get an A in or get done with, or you can do perfectly. I think sometimes that's what we're trying to do, and that's why it's not working.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I feel like that's how life is in general. Like nothing ever ends, exercise never ends. You don't just like get in shape and now you're done. Like you have to keep maintaining it. You have to keep stretching every day. You have to keep doing cardio. You have to keep eating healthy. And I feel like I mentioned at the start of the episode that I do a lot of stuff out in the yard this time of year, and gardening has really taught me that. Like you don't just plant a bunch of plants and then they just come back every year and everything is great. And, being someone who lived in condos and apartments most of my life, I didn't realize that. I thought you could just plant it and you're good. But, some things need extra tending. Some things don't come back. Some things are invasive. Like you have to really keep checking in and seeing what's working, what's not, what do I need to change? And that to me is just such a good analogy for planning and for life in general, to stop thinking about arriving at this successful destination where your life is perfectly in order. It is like a garden. It is always going to be changing. It's going to change throughout seasons. It's going to change over the years. And the more you can just embrace that and make checking in and reevaluating and tending part of your normal daily habits, rather than something like, oh, here's something I have to do again. It's like, no, you're really tending to yourself. And you mentioned that it's like a form of self-care. It is. You're tending to yourself. You're paying attention to yourself. You're paying attention to what you need in order to thrive and to be your best. And I just think that's such a much more inspiring and empowering way to look at planning and organization. It's not just one more thing that I have to do, but it's something that actually helps me be the best version of myself, to live the kind of life that I want to live. And it does require ongoing thinking and maintenance. And that's not a bad thing.
So you could have just answered the other question that I'm going to ask, but I'll ask it anyway, or the other thought that I have. The other thought that I have is we don't like to be told what to do, even if we're telling ourselves. So I think sometimes when you plan or you have a to-do list, like it's just one more thing to do and you can't get it all done anyway. So why would I tell myself what to do when I can't even get done all the to-dos other people are telling me to do? So I'm just not going to do that. And I'm like, I have rebel tendencies. So I'll make my to-do list, but then I don't want to do the to-do list that I made for myself, even though I'm the one that created it. And then I get mad at myself that I made a list that I don't even want to do. So now I do make the to-do list, but how I get it done, when I get it done, and the energy is fluid, which I already heard. If you rewind and listen to when Angela talked about planning her week, you can hear the fluidity of like, if this gets moved and then it gets bounced off, and then if it gets bounced off, then something else has, like, that is how I plan also. So at first I didn't like telling myself what to do because I wasn't meeting my own expectations, because I couldn't get it all checked off because I was putting too much on my plate. So part of it is understanding the capacity that you actually have and making better choices of what you put on your plate. But also it's like a running joke to everyone who has access to my calendar at Organized 365, because I plan out my full week. And then you can literally watch, it's like a dance party watching me move around my blocks on my calendar all week, because I never do it in the order that I have it planned. Because I'm like, don't feel like do that. I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do this. And I'm just constantly rearranging them.
And that's freedom. That's not a failed planner. There's so many people who think, oh, well, I thought I was going to get it done today and I didn't. I messed up. I didn't do this right.
Right.
No, like productive people are always reevaluating priorities and saying, you know what, this other thing came up that was unexpected for me, and this is more important. Or, I have to get this thing done. Or, you know what, I'm really tired. And if I try to do this task today, it's going to take me twice as long and the outcome is not going to be as good as if I just wake up early tomorrow and get it done. That's not failure.
Exactly.
That's what productive people do. They constantly move things around, and you don't have to lock yourself into things. I prefer to not assign things to specific days unless they absolutely have to be. I would rather see a list of tasks for the week, and then I get to pick and choose which one do I feel like doing today. As long as they're all done by the end of the week, I'm good. But having that kind of choice really makes a big difference if you're a person who doesn't like, people telling you what to do, including yourself.
I do the same thing. I pick out what I want done for the week, and then it doesn't matter. Now, I do have to put it on my Google Calendar in calendar blocks for two reasons. One, I overstuff the week. So when I put the things on the calendar, then I realize, okay, well, I can't write an annotated bibliography, read the article and write it in less than 2 hours. So I have to chunk out 2-hour blocks. I'm like, oh, darn it. I can only get 5 done this week. I can't get X done. Or like a podcast, start to finish, idea to recording to uploading 2 hours. So then I put in a 2-hour chunk of time. If I had it just on a regular list, I would get 80% of that list done, but the other 20% needed done. I didn't know I had time. So I have to put it on a calendar with the amount of time so that I don't overstuff the week. And then the second thing is these kids are really a confound. I'm just going to tell you. So like in the last couple of days, and I will be doing a podcast on this, like I had everything planned out, but everything has gotten pushed aside because the baby had to go to the hospital for 7 hours. He's fine. He's dehydrated. Greg had cataract surgery. I thought you just drop him off at home. No, you have to stay with him for 6 to 8 hours. I was at the office this morning recording the podcast. I thought I was going to record yesterday when Greg was recovering on his own, but he was recovering with me. So I went into the office, recorded the podcast. And then I see everybody in the office running around. I don't know what's the matter with them. Oh, yeah, we have no internet. So I'm recording this. Now I've driven home. I'm back at home recording this with you because I didn't want to reschedule this. So I'm constantly reorganizing my calendar based on my family, my kids, the world, the environment, whatever. And so because I have it on my calendar, dragging those blocks around, I'm like, okay, well, the journal article is due next Monday. So the annotated bibliographies I want to get done are now going to get done 3 weeks from now, which means I'm still going to hit the school deadline, but I was trying to beat that deadline because of a trip I'm taking. See what I'm saying? Like it's all these variables constantly, and it doesn't all get done. Like nobody's getting their entire list done, even if they do it the way Angela's doing it or the way I do it. Everybody is having to drop things because of life. Life happens. Like it is, I mean, you can guarantee it. It's going to happen. You're not going to get everything done.
Yes, that's right. I think that's a really important thing to say. And that doesn't make planning not worthwhile, because that's the other thing. Sometimes people will think, well, if I'm not going to get it all done, what was the point? The point is to remember that you don't have to get it all done, but to be aware of what needs to be done. And I particularly like the point that you made about the blocks of time too, and thinking about how long things will take, because that is the biggest trap when it comes to putting too much on your plate. It's not breaking the task down into smaller chunks and realizing how many of those are going to take. So, you can put something on your to-do list like, reorganize the garage. Well, is that a 30-minute job or is that a 10-day job? Like, it depends on what exactly you want to do. You need to break down exactly what needs to happen. Do you need to clean out the attic? Are you reorganizing all the shelves? Like, what specifically needs to be done? And think about the length of time for that. And if you're not a person who likes to plan and that feels really overwhelming, then try to overestimate rather than underestimate. Give yourself extra time. Think, okay, I probably will not be able to reorganize the whole garage in one day. Let me just set aside this 2-hour block. I'll get as far as I can, and then I'll reevaluate from there and see what else absolutely has to be done. And when in my calendar do I want to do it? Maybe in this coming week, I have something else coming up, and this is just not going to be a priority. So I can put it on a list for the next week and think then, okay, what's another block? And what specifically do I want to get done? Maybe at the end of that block, I just want to, clean out the extra freezer that's out there or something. Like, be a little specific about what you want to accomplish, and you're much more likely to get it done. And then you won't feel bad if other stuff doesn't get done, because you can see, oh, look at all this stuff that I did accomplish.
And that's why I put it on my calendar, because now you can go backwards. I can tell you what I did on October 13th. Like I know everything, even in my personal life. So this weekend I had to power wash the deck. So this is the second year I power washed the deck. And I was like, I'd really like to get this done in an hour, but it could take 4. I can't remember how long power washing our deck takes. It takes 90 minutes. And I put it in my calendar so that next year I know. Last year when I was mulching the yard, I thought it was going to take all weekend. It took start to finish, from ordering, delivery, mulching, everything, 4 hours. So now I know mulching takes 4 hours. Decorating the Christmas tree feels like it's going to take forever. It takes 2 hours, from dragging everything up, putting it all up, putting everything back in the basement. So now I know how long these things take. And now I can task stack things like this on the weekend, just like I do during my work week. But when you don't know how long things take, you either think everything takes an hour or everything takes all day, and there's no in between. But once you time track on your calendar, like you don't even have to time track it anywhere. I just put it on my calendar. then when I want to know how long it takes to power wash, I can literally just Google search power wash on my calendar and it'll show me how long it took me last year. And so next summer I will know it takes 90 minutes to power wash.
I think that is so brilliant, Lisa, because a lot of times when we have trouble estimating time, you think like, oh, I have to like get out a timer and actually time myself. And then what happens when I need to answer a phone call or something? Well, if there was a phone call interrupting you this year, there will probably be a phone call interrupting you next year too. So go ahead and build that in and just say, okay, it took me about 90 minutes. I love the idea of just like typing that into the calendar. It takes 2 seconds and then you have that for your reference and then you can estimate your time better the next time you do that task. So smart.
I didn't used to like to see where my time goes, but now I'm obsessed. Like I know how much time I've spent watching tea with Greg, how much time I spend taking care of Grayson. And the other reason I really like doing that, because no one's checking but me, and my team doesn't see the personal calendar. I have a work calendar where I have meetings, like this podcast is on that. I have a work calendar where I plan my work, and I have a personal calendar where I spend my time. And when I see all three, I could see where all of my time has gone. I want to prioritize my husband, my spouse, my kids, my grandkids. And so I want to be able to look back on my calendar and make sure that I've been spending enough time in the business, enough time in the household, enough time with my husband, enough time with the kids, enough time in my PhD. So when I was done, I actually added up every single hour that I spent in the first trimester of doing a PhD and how it fell throughout the cycle so I could make kind of like a plan for what was going to happen in every term following. I'm such a nerd. But also I realized that you think there's going to be a lot of work at the end. I had no work at the end because I front loaded my term and I'm doing it again. So I do the opposite of what most people do. I don't put anything off. That way I have time for the unexpected. I'm like, I can do this. I'm going to be able to get through this PhD. I see how this is going to work with this planning. So my question to you, Angela, is, do you plan more or less now? And how much time are you spending planning, do you think?
I think I probably plan a little more now for the same reason that you were saying. Like, I just enjoy it now. I started also using a habit tracker app, which helps me with some things that this is a very new development, like just in the last couple of weeks, because there's little things like my dentist is like, you need to be flossing every single day. And I've been hearing that for how many years? Do I floss every single day? I do not. And I don't know what it is. It's a 2-minute task. It's so easy. I can do it when I'm sitting on the couch watching TV. Why am I not doing this? So I moved the floss next to the couch, right? So it's right there and I can see it. So that helps. And then I got this habit tracker app where I get to, I have a goal of 5 days a week because I would rather go over, and like, wow, I did 7 days, than go under and, have these negative feelings associated with this app. So I have the flossing is in there. And all I have to do is just tap the little button and then it keeps track of when I'm flossing and when I'm not. And it's so easy and it's so rewarding. Like I added other stuff on there too. Like, am I doing some sort of yoga or stretching every day? Like all these little things that just help me to enjoy my life more, that kind of make the other things possible, keep me in good health, keep me in good mental health as well. Putting those in there and tracking them is something that I didn't think I wanted to do because I didn't want to feel like it was one more thing. I didn't want to feel like I was failing at something else. Like here's one more standard I have to uphold, but I'm just loose and easy with it. And tracking that data has really been cool. And it definitely gives me incentive. Like I find that like I'm now flossing at least 5 times a week because I want to see it on that habit tracker app. I was like, I can't believe it took me all these years to figure out it could have been that simple.
Well, you were ready for it. You were ready. And I'm like, again, I'm like, I won't keep track of the app. I'm like out on the habit tracker app. Have to, when I want a new habit, I have to put it in with something like you're saying on the couch, something I'm already doing. It has to go in my morning, afternoon, or evening routine.
Okay.
Because I can't create another pocket. There will be no other pocket of time.
Yep. Yeah. I'm pairing habits. Pairing habits that's another powerful way to do it. And again, this is about knowing yourself. For me, if I'm pairing habits, sometimes that does work, but then, and other times I need some kind of other accountability or some other kind of prompt. So again, knowing yourself and having lots of different options so that you can kind of pick and choose what works for you. And I think you can find some joy in planning and finding joy in pairing up these things of saying, okay, this is my routine for the morning, or this is my routine in the evenings, and getting to add in something else. And again, thinking of that as self-care, as something that you're doing to tend to yourself, to look after yourself, and to make sure that your needs are being met and your goals are being met. Like, this is all just a very holistic form of self-care, and thinking about planning in that way, and your habits in that way is just so much more motivating.
Yes. So I know summer, blah, 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 is supposed to be for resting, relaxing. You get the idea. I'm always like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Until July. And then my brain gets sucked out of my head and like the sun comes in and I can't think anymore. So while it's still June, I still have somewhat of a coherence to myself. I know that we definitely need to rest and relax in the summer, but also there is extra time in the summer, extra daylight time, extra energy time, extra time just for ourselves without other obligations because people are on vacation or doing whatever. And it's kind of like when I was teaching kids and I had them in preschool and kindergarten, and they got an extra half day of school with me because they were behind their peers, but we would give them that extra half day of kindergarten and help shore up their skills so that when they got to first grade, they would be where their peers are and they would catch up. So I look at summer as catch up time. I always have like catch up on everything and kind of get ahead, because when the fall comes, we're going to enter our most 10 productive weeks of the year from Labor Day until the second week in November. Like, everybody runs hard in everything that they do. And so I look at what can we do in the summer that will help us run harder in the fall without as much efforting. Like, what can we do in the summer? So what are you looking forward to in this back to school blitz time where you're getting ready for the next school year? Like, what are you looking forward to this summer?
So last summer, I did a lot of traveling. I led a group of teachers in a trip to Egypt and also one to Switzerland.
Wow.
So it was an incredible experience, but, being gone for that long, being out of the country, like the days leading up to it, all I'm thinking about is like, rechecking the date on my passport and did I pack this, and researching, Googling, and then coming home, I'm jet lagged. Like, a lot of my time was gone. And so this summer, I'm like, you know what? I think I want to be at home. And I think I want to really use this summer to kind of get ahead on different projects, because I feel the same way that you do. Like, this is a time for me, I like to prepare for that big run up in back to school season. So I'm going to be working on the 40-hour teacher workweek online summit. I'm working on Finding Flow curriculum solutions, all of which are just designed to help bring productivity practices in the classroom. And I feel like summer is a great time to get ahead on these kinds of projects, because like you said, so many people are not working. So many people are offline, that it's a chance for me to really focus and concentrate without feeling like there's all these other demands coming at me. You can hear more of this conversation with Lisa on her Organized 365 podcast, and check out her Education Friday workbox. That's her system that helps teachers get organized and reduce the amount of time you spend on administrative tasks. Links are in the show notes to both. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.